I will now show you how to convert a variable from a decimal to an integer, for example. Why might this be important? Well, we've just seen that there are two different division behaviors in C, for example, integer division and floating point division. What if you had two floating point variables, but you actually wanted to divide them as integers? So, for example, the user had entered 5.0 and 2.0, and you wanted to do an integer division 5 divided by 2, which we know gives a 2. But if you divide 5.0 by 2.0, C does it accurately as a decimal division and gets the result 2.5. So you would have to first cast or convert these variables into integers. I will show you how that's done. So let's start with two variables of type double, and I'll call them D1 and D2, and then corresponding variables of type integer, into which we're going to convert these, called I1 and I2. Let's have the user enter these variables. So please enter two decimals. And then we can use scanf to read these decimals. And in order to read a double, we need the format specifier %lf. And we're going to read two of them. So there's %lf twice. And then we need to put an ampersand and the variable name where the first one is going to be stored, and an ampersand and the variable name D2 where the second variable is going to be stored. So we should probably first of all confirm that we read the variables correctly. So I read D1 equals, and then we'll print out %lf, and D2 equals %lf. And we need D1 here and D2. So that shows us what we just read. And next, let's cast or convert these variables into integers. So I1 is going to be the same as D1. But we can't just do it like that because they have different data types. This would give us a warning from the compiler. Instead, we're going to put the new data type in front of D1 here, which is a data type int, in parentheses. And that's called casting. You recognize int as a data type. We put that in parentheses, and that tells C, well, take this decimal and make this into an integer. And how it does that? If there are no decimal places anyway, well, then that's pretty easy. But if there are decimals, it simply cuts those off. So a 5.3 would become a 5. Even a 5.9 would become a 5. So this is not the same as rounding. It's simply cutting off decimals. Similarly, I2 is going to be an integer cast of D2. And now let's print out what these two new variables are. So I1 equals %d. This time I use a %d as a format specifier, since I1 and I2 are both integers. So also a %d for I2. And so I1, I2 get printed out right here. Let's run this. Compile and run. Enter two decimals, let's say 5.6 and 2.4. And it says I read D1 is 5.6 and D2 is 2.4. Those are my two decimals. And then I1 are the conversions of those two. I1 is 5 and I2 is 2, the two converted numbers. So it simply cut off the decimal places. But what's great now is, as the last step, I can actually perform an integer division if I wanted to. So printf, I can write the whole division down. So I1 %d divided by %d equals %d. I'm going to put this equation down here. And I'm going to replace the first %d with I1, the second %d with I2, and then the result of the computation with the integer division I1 divided by I2. Let's run this. So compile and run. Please enter two decimals. I'm going to do 5.0 and 2.0 as in my initial example here. I read D1 is 5.0, D2 is 2.0. The casted numbers are 5 and 2, two integers. And then I can do an integer division, 5 divided by 2 equals 2. So that's how you cast from one data type to the other. You can also go the other way around. You can cast an integer into a double by simply replacing this int right here with the other data type.